So our country is possibly rounded the top of the curve. I think a lot of people see that the country's in a little bit of a downfall, but I just kind of want to shed light on something that I saw and heard about that kind of got me thinking. Maybe I can get you guys thinking a little bit too on maybe what's going on with this weird world. At least something interesting about it. So, yeah, Nostradamus. He has predicted a lot of things. The end of the world, when things are going to happen, shifts on the continent and world. Nostradamus, you know. But a big one was around the year 2000, Y2K. Now, there was a lot of fear around Y2K. Of course, if you were alive during that time, I remember it very well. Made a big change in my life during 2000. But Y2K was going to be a time that was expected to be kind of the end of the world, the end of everything as we know it, the whole computer crash, everything shutting down, everything electronic blowing up, toasters blowing up, all this stuff. There was a big scare with it. None of that happened. But something happened. Something happened in 2000. Now, it's almost like we just kind of turned off. We haven't advanced a whole lot until very recently. And I say recently with this push of artificial intelligence, kind of virtual reality and stuff like that, which virtual reality was pretty much a failure. I enjoyed it. Of course, I'm just not glued to it the whole time, but it's pretty cool. If you've never experienced it, it's pretty cool. Innovation has completely disappeared. Creativity has disappeared. Go back through the generations. So let's look at the 1950s. That's a good starting point. You can go back to the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, and keep going back, but we'll start with the 50s. Look at the 50s. Think about the 50s. What happened? Now, that was one of the peaks in our country. That was kind of on the top of the world. People were happy. We created subdivisions. We created rock and roll. We created cinema in a new light. Television, air conditioning. All these things came out in the 50s. It was a very, very different world. There was a stay-at-home wife. The wife was expected to do certain things. The husband was expected to do certain things, and the children were expected to act a certain way. It was the 50s. Now, when you move into the 60s, look at the things that were big. Scary movies became real big. People started wearing bright colors. Look at dance clubs. Dance clubs didn't really change a whole lot between the 30s, 40s, and 50s. It started shifting in the 50s. But then look at what shifted into the 60s. Big difference. Look at the music. Look at the music difference between the rock and roll of the 60s. Almost the heavy metal that began. Folk. Lots of folk came into music. Compare that back to the 50s. Now, I think we all know the golden oldies, the 50s and stuff like that, doo-wop, 50s rock, compared to what was in the 60s. Now, very, very, very different. Very big separation between those two decades, between the 50s and 60s. Look into the 70s. Look at the people from the 60s. They had the hairdos of the 60s. Going into the 70s, you had the peace movement, you had hippies, everybody had long hair. Very different than the 60s. Music went into, Creedence Clearwater Revisited and Revival, Led Zeppelin, Alice Cooper. Everything was rock and roll in the 70s. There was a little bit of country western, very, very small amount. Jazz, blues, very small amount. It was all rock and roll. Look at the clubs. Think about a club in the 60s. Think about a disco in the 70s. Very, very, very different. You can even look at political differences within those times as well. Look from the 70s to the 80s. Look at the 80s with the blues, pinks, yellows, the colors. You look at the hippies from the 70s and you look at teenagers from the 80s. Huge difference. An absolute huge difference. Look at the movies from the 70s compared to the movies from the 80s. People were inventing things in the 80s. We got Back to the Future. We got rap. We got lots of big movies out of the 80s. I'm a kid of the 80s. I can go on and on with Breakfast Club and all these different epic movies. Animal House. Saturday Night Live was at its peak. But even looking at the music, rap came out. You had Run DMC, DJ Jazzy Jeff. You had these breakthrough things that were happening there only to the 80s. Didn't exist in the 70s, didn't exist in the 90s. And even bringing up politics. Look at what Ronald Reagan did. The whole Reagan movement changed everything compared to the 70s with Nixon and things like that. Everything changed. The 80s, it's just the 80s. The 70s are just the 70s. Go to the 90s. What happened in the 90s? Well, the rap of the 80s, gone. The colors of the 80s, gone. The movies of the 80s, happy, upbeat, gone, out the window. What came in? Nirvana, Korn, dark rock, gangster rap, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, Ice-T. There was a big shift in everything. Music, movies, politics. Look at what happened with the politics. 92, Clinton came in, changed the whole game. The Clinton era was very, very different from the Reagan era. And then it comes to 2000. What happened in 2000? Nothing. Really nothing at all. In the 2000 range, we had Obama that happened. Kind of changed things. He was the first African American president. But he just stood on the shoulders of Bill Clinton. You look at movies. What happened with movies? Did we have much come out? Well, I'll give you that we got The Walking Dead. No epic series, no Sopranos that came out in the 90s, 1999. None of these big epic shows came out. Now, I'm not a huge TV person, but there isn't another Jurassic Park that came out in 2000. In fact, they started remaking older movies because, well, they couldn't really come up with anything for that time, that era. There was just a state of being stagnant in 2000. Not much really happened. I guess we got crypto. But look at 2010. What's going on in 2010? Well, we have no good movies. We have the same music that's been out for the last 10 years, 15 years. No good movies. They just keep making Jurassic Parks. They just keep adding on. Even look at The Walking Dead. Okay, well, they can't come up with anything new, so what do they come out with? Spin-off for Daryl, a spin-off for Rick, all these spin-offs with, other people. I think they have like 4 different spin-offs. Fear the Walking Dead and Morgan, and just as an example, a lot of people watch The Walking Dead. It's just nothing has really come out. They get one good thing and they milk it and beat that dead horse as long as they possibly can because they know they don't have anything. They don't have any good creative minds out there doing anything. Let's look at the 2020s. What's going on in the 2020s so far? Nothing. We're still remaking movies. The music still sounds the same. I know rock still sounds the same. Hip hop has changed just a little bit. It's just gotten a little bit softer. It's not so edgy, but basically the same thing. I could listen to a rap song because I don't listen to rap. I could listen to a rap song now, and if you ask me if it was 2020, 2010, 2000, or even into the 90s, and I wouldn't be able to tell you. It all kind of sounds the same. Rock pretty much all sounds the same. There's been a little bit of upbeat and talent, but that's it. It's all the same shit. Look at disco compared to the 80s. You know, I mean, look at Billy Idol and Robert Palmer and those groups that were in the 80s. I mean, I'm not thinking of a whole bunch right now. There are some really, really big ones. But compare it back to what was in the 70s. The Bee Gees and stuff like that. That's what was popular. Kiss. The Monkees, stuff like that. Huge contrast. What's the contrast between 2005 and 2025? Very, very small. So kind of what I'm getting at is for something to think about. What happened in 2000? What happened for that dive? We had this creativity in your direction, creativity climbing and climbing and climbing. And kind of around the 90s to 2000, we just kind of plateaued out a little bit and we're just dropping. I mean, I think that was kind of the peak of our country. Honestly, I think maybe in the 80s, 50s to the 80s was the peak, but if you want to stretch it out to the year 2000, maybe that was it. Maybe that was just the last nail in the coffin. We're not really innovative, again, except for some technology like AI that's been around for a long time, but it's become public. You know, in cryptocurrency, which isn't very innovative. It's just something, honestly, that's made up that was able to get into the U.S. stock exchange, and that's all it is. Crypto is actually nothing but an idea that is traded. Just think about what has come out really good, really innovative, really creative in the last 20 years. There's a couple things, but nothing like what happened in the 90s. Friends, all these great shows that came out in the 80s, in the 70s, 60s, 50s. And then think about the stark differences between the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Big differences, and there's a definite culture and identity to growing up in that decade. If you grew up in the 80s, you're totally different than somebody that grew up in the 90s or the 70s or the 2000s. Or if you grew up in the 90s, you're different than somebody in the 2010s or the 70s. There's a big difference right there. From 2000, 2010, 2020, it's all kind of the same. You know, maybe it's my age. Maybe I'm just looking at it from different eyes than a lot of people. Maybe somebody that's 20 years old right now is going to think of, you know, the 2000s as this weird relic era. But honestly, just looking at it and paying attention to a little bit of media, entertainment, Hollywood, society, politics, and all that stuff, where's it at? I just really don't see it. So, something to think about. Something to think about. What happened in 2000? All right, I'm going to leave this as a short video. I kind of wanted to bring that up. I got inspired by somebody else talking about this, and thought I'd bring it up and kind of give my interpretation of it. So I will leave it with that. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day today, and I will talk to you soon. Till next time, peace.